Hello everyone and welcome to this multiplayer showdown between the Lizardmen led by KROQ-GAR, who are going to be facing off against the Skaven hordes, who are going to be helmed by KROQ-Headtaker. So let's jump right into this game, guys, and take a look at some of the army compositions. So firstly, for the Skaven here in the back line, they actually have 4 groups of the Poison Wing Globadiers. So for any of you guys that are playing the Skaven versus Lizardmen matchup, I would definitely recommend bringing a few of these bad boys. They do have anti-large and armor-piercing attacks, which are pretty essential to beating the Lizardmen. You can see here, KROQ-GAR does have 100 armor, and he is, of course, quite large. He's also joined by this Basiladon here with the Revivification Crystal. I thought that was pretty good. I'm getting used to saying that. But it also has 140 armor and is a large target. And even if you were to bring Mazdamundi on Zlok, for example, he is also a large target with tons of armor. So having these Globadiers is pretty essential. And, even if they don't bring a ton of large units, these guys also do have pretty decent armor-piercing values. So if you end up facing off against Temple Guard or Cold One Riders, who I think have pretty good armor values, let's actually look. So Cold One have 90 armor, and the Temple Guard in the front line also have 85. So the armor-piercing will definitely be useful for kind of getting through to those guys. Aside from that, in the secondary line, he does have a ton of Plague Monks. And Plague Monks are a really solid unit. They are pretty squishy to missile fire. Granted, the dinos, they might bring some like, skink skirmishers or things like that, but you don't really have to worry about it too much in this matchup. These guys have excellent combat stats with 35 weapon strength and a true bonus versus infantry of 7. So you don't, obviously the main drawback of the Plague Monks is that they don't have the best armor piercing values. If you look at their AP, 8 of their 35 damage is armor piercing, so that's pretty low. However, Saurus Warriors and Temple Guards don't have the most armor. They will struggle against Temple Guards who have 85, but if they're facing off against like Saurus Warriors who only have 60, they should do just fine. So on the front, he has an entire battalion of the Skaven Slave Spears. So these guys are definitely going to, designed to just take the brunt of whatever dinosaurs I send in. He's probably been playing against a lot of Lizardmen who are using all kinds of wild beasts, so he just decided to throw these guys up in the front. So as you guys can see in the tooltip, for those of you guys that haven't seen this, they have the Expendable Trait. So essentially what that means is when these guys rout or get, just essentially annihilated by whatever they're fighting, you're not going to suffer a leadership penalty on your other units. So if you were like one of your Plague Monks or some of these, Globadiers were to rout off the battlefield, you would then get a leadership penalty on your units that would say like friends were routing. So you don't get that with these slaves, which I think is a really nice mechanic. So he's got the Plague Monks, slaves in the front, Globadiers to take down my big dinos. He also has KROQ-Headtaker. So KROQ, I think, is kind of the lord of choice against the lizards because he's very durable and tough to kill, and durable by Skaven standards. But he still does have 100 armor, and he's quite slippery with the Verminous Valor, which let me see if he did bring that. Yeah, so that gives him a 24 speed, so he can definitely squeak away. And yeah, the pun, I guess a pun just came out of that. But yes, he can squeak away. And he also has trophy heads. So KROQ-GAR is pretty powerful, so anything you can do to mitigate his stats is going to be really nice. So KROQ does have this trophy heads, which lowers not only his defense, but also his offense, which is going to be pretty essential for his survival. He also has a Plague Priest here, so he's probably going to be summoning some Plague Monks. He also has a Vermintide, I think. No Vermintide. So Blessed with Filth, which imbues poison. The Plague, which is basically a big AoE bomb. And then also Pestilent Birth, which is going to summon Plague Monks. So I definitely like his army. It's a very turtly Skaven army with no artillery. So I was definitely, caught off guard a little bit. But, all of his missile fire is going to be coming from these Globadiers who I need to be really careful with. KROQ-GAR, I'm basically just going to kind of be teasing the flanks and trying to lure these guys out because they do have very short range at 85. So we'll see how that goes. So for me, I've been experimenting with these Pterodon Riders with the Fire Leech Boluses, and these guys are absolute beasts. They can drop only one volley of bombs that drop rocks, but it's a pretty big spread. Like each of these pterodactyls right here actually drops, or pterodons, whatever. Each of them actually drops a rock, and it does huge splash damage if you nail it correctly. And on top of that, they have fire damage, and though they don't have a true anti-infantry bonus, if I'm not mistaken, they still do really well versus lightly armored infantry. So these Plague Monks are going to be taking a ton of damage from these bad boys. Over here, I also do have a Skink Priest leading his brothers in the air. And he has Flock of Doom and Weisson's Wild Farm. And for those of you guys that haven't seen it, the Amber Spear from the Lore of Beasts is actually heavily bugged right now. You can just like spam it nonstop, and it doesn't use your Winds of Magic, and it refreshes the cooldown instantly. So, just a heads up, guys, if you run into that, that's what's happening. So, for my front line, I do have some Skink cohorts here and one on the far side. I got some Saurus Warriors who are going to be anchored by the Temple Guard. So, man, I've been playing against so many Skaven builds that are just bringing like 3 Doom Wheels and just trolling all over me. So I was like, all right, enough is enough. I'm going to bring KROQ-GAR, I'm going to bring Temple Guards, and I'm also going to bring some Cold One Spear Riders to deal with that. So thankfully I had that, but honestly these guys should do well in the front line, and I need a little bit of a kind of durable troops here just to get through the slaves and also work through the Plague Monks. So I'm hoping these Temple Guard are up to the task. KROQ-GAR, of course, a pretty good pick. He's great at eating Skaven. You can see Grimlock is quite hungry. The crystal over here to heal my lord, and yes, I did dodge saying the full word, but he's basically there just as a heal bot. And the Globadiers can pretty much, like, if all 4 of those Globadiers get a good shot on this guy, it could one-shot him. So I need to be very careful of that. And the Cold One Riders in the back. So without further ado, guys, let's get the show on the road. So you can see I do drop a nice Flock of Doom here, which hits a couple groups of units. I think it hit the Plague Monks as well as these Globadiers. And over here you can see I'm throwing the Boluses. So the Boluses are so freaking cool, and you can see it roasting some of these Skaven slaves and also doing some decent damage to these Plague Monks right here. So They are moving right now, so they're a little bit hard to hit, but as I kind of work on them with these boluses, you can see it just kind of keep roasting these rats, and it's doing some solid damage. In the front line, you can see the Temple Guard have engaged with the Skaven Slave, so my opponent kind of using these fodder units to kind of break my momentum a little bit in the front line, but man, these guys have some really cool attack animations, but I can't wait for the Blood Pack to get added to this. So the Temple Guard in the front are pretty much just massacring these Skaven Slaves as expected, and you can see the Plague Monks are now going to be running in, and look how they waddle, it's so great, but they'll do okay against the Temple Guard. They do have an anti-infantry bonus, and Temple Guard, though they are an armored unit, don't have the most armor, but it looks like, oh, they have 115 because I cast Wython's Wild Form, so that'll make them a little bit stronger for sure. Over here, I'm basically just running KROQ-GAR around the flank. So KROQ-GAR is just trying to avoid those Globadiers, and you can see every time I move, my opponent is like reacting by sending his guys, but KROQ-GAR just runs right through the ranks and is basically just trampling these Skaven Slaves, which isn't the best targeting for him, but basically my ideology is that, and there's his explosion right there that actually gives him a speed buff, is that my opponent invested so much in these Globadiers. So if I could just keep running around and not engaging the Globadiers and keeping them out of the battle, it would probably be worth it because they're pretty much obstructed in terms of shooting at the Temple Guard and the other units, so felt pretty safe there. Here in the front, we do have some Saurus Warriors fighting these Storm Vermin. Unfortunately for me, the Storm Vermin are pretty heavily armored. The Saurus Warriors are struggling a little bit. Granted, it is a 2v1 matchup. There's Plague Monks and Storm Vermin there, so they're still doing pretty well with 33 kills. Over on the far side, unfortunately, I did path my Bastildon up onto some Skaven troops in the front line, and they ended up routing these Skaven Slaves. So what happened was it kept chasing through, and I lost kind of focus, and it got killed by the Globadier. So very well played my opponent there. You can see that my Pterodons up here are doing some great bombing down here, throwing their Fire Leech boluses at these guys, and these are definitely one of my new favorite units to try out with the Lizardmen. Especially, I don't know if they would be great against Dark Elves and High Elves because they're archers, which shoot them out of the sky. But in this matchup, I feel like they're pretty good. Like, good at taking out these cheap units. You can see I'm just dropping fire, and my poor Bastildon's going to probably get shattered off the battlefield here, so not getting too much healing there. So you can see KROQ-GAR is basically just baiting some of the fire, and my Skinks have gotten up and around the flank, so they're going to be charging in at these Globadiers. And now I decided to start bombing them with the Fire Leech boluses, which doesn't do the most damage because these guys are very heavily armored. They actually have 100 darn armor, which is pretty crazy. But, you know, worst case scenario, if KROQ-GAR was getting compromised, I could dive in with my Pterodons and interrupt them, but I'm trying my best not to do that. So right now I'm actually flying over, I think for a rock bombing. I come right over these guys, so check this out. They're going to fly overhead. They're throwing boluses the entire time, and then here comes the rock drop. So right on top of those rats, just doing some pretty massive damage. I mean, those guys were at about 40 or 50% HP respectively. Now they're pretty much dead, so it's definitely going well. The frontline engagement is very pitched. The Saurus Warriors had to clean up slaves and then had to get through some of these other infantry and are now finally at the Plague Monks here. So it's a very close kind of bitter fight, but the Temple Guard are really shining against these Storm Vermin, doing an excellent job. And you can see Big Daddy KROQ-GAR is now in the mix and he's just tail whipping these vermin. And, you know, if he was completely surrounded by Storm Vermin, it would be very bad. But considering that he does have the support of some of these Saurus over here, I felt a little bit safe. But you can see I do pop that Sacred Spawning of Zodal, giving him a ward save and speed, I think. No, it's actually Vigor, it's not speed. So if you pop that periodically throughout the battle, you'll notice that KROQ-GAR will be tired and the enemy lords will be exhausted. It's really, really good. So over here, I have my Pterodons still continuing to throw their boluses at some of these routing Skaven, which is definitely nice. My opponent did a pretty good job of using his clan rats in the back line to intercept my Skinks, who I was trying to get back on these guys, so he's been protecting this pocket really well. I haven't really been able to get through too easily, but now it's finally judgment time. So KROQ-GAR's had enough, and he's going in, and he's got his Pterodons diving in and his dinosaurs, and you can see these rats. The screen is just rumbling with the KROQ-GAR's anger over here, so hopefully he eats some of these guys. That would be pretty cool. Yeah, I think the dino actually does have an animation where he tosses like one of the Skaven up and eats them, but the Pterodons have landed, and they're pretty good for this. I mean, they got decent combat stats in melee. Let's actually look what their stats are. So, yeah, 26 melee attack isn't terrible. And again, the Poison Wind Globadiers, have far worse stats. They have 18 and 16 respectively for melee attack and melee defense. So KROQ-GAR is able to get in here, and we were finally able to crack these Globadiers who were just such a menace, just causing problems. And now KROQ-GAR has sighted the Plague Priest, and he's just gonna feast. So the Plague Priest just got hit by KROQ-GAR and literally lost like half of his HP. He has blessed himself with filth, so he does have poison damage, but that is not going to be enough to stop KROQ-GAR. And is it just me? For any of you guys that have seen King of the Hill back in the day, it was a show back in the States that was really funny. But doesn't KROQ-GAR sound like something that like Boomhauer would say, like just kind of in his like rambling? I kind of thought it was like a redneck name of sorts, but you can see KROQ-GAR, get him KROQ-GAR, he's going after the Plague Priest back here. He's going to chase him down and make sure there's no more foul magic at play. In the front, you can see Queek Headtaker is putting up a pretty good fight, but he is fighting Temple Guard, who have good AP values and can work him down over time. And Queek is more of a duelist. He's not really good at kind of working through a lot of infantry, but he's trying his best. So you can see my other group of Temple Guard are coming over here, and Queek has some of the cooler attack animations in the game. He has a lot of like, I saw some neat ones where he was like jumping on people's backs and doing all kinds of crazy stuff, but the Temple Guard are getting cleaved a little bit by him, but you know, these sheer numbers of like elite armor-piercing lizards are just gonna, you know, just take him down. So you can see he's a little bit compromised right now, taking some damage. And now Big Daddy KROQ-GAR, I popped Cold Blood on him to give him a little bit of healing before going in after the Rat Lord himself. As far as the Skaven go, they do have some troops out on the periphery. So actually 70 Storm Vermin here. They got 27 Plague Monks. And also I think these are Storm Vermin. So 46, so a lot of good troops coming back. But over here, I have my Pterodons chasing down these routing units, making sure they're not going to come back because those guys are pretty much full ammunition. And had they been able to shoot at KROQ-GAR unimpeded, that would have been really bad. And you can also see my cold ones here, cracking one open with this Plague Priest. He's definitely not having fun. You know, he's not able to handle his liquor with those guys, and you know, he's going to get routed off here. But the Pterodons are going to fly and just do some bombing runs on some of these Plague Monks, do some pretty good work, and you can see KROQ-GAR is just dominating Queek. I mean, Queek is good and all, but I mean, he's much cheaper than KROQ-GAR, so you would expect him to actually lose in this matchup. But KROQ-GAR has the Weissman's Wild form, and man, he's so darn cool looking. He's actually going to stomp on Queek and pop his explosion at the same time, probably knocking back some of his guys, but I don't think that actually does like friendly fire damage. So some of these Storm Vermin have re-engaged here. I do have some Rampaging Saurus Warriors, and there's only 4 of them, which is pretty incredible that they're still fighting. And you can see these guys. I think the Pterodons actually come up and over and do a bit of a rear charge on these Storm Vermin. But Queek is just taking so much damage, and he's probably not going to last much longer. So my Pterodons are coming down right now, and are going to get a nice charge on these Storm Vermin. Hopefully they're going to be able to finish off this battle. So I definitely think KROQ-GAR was pretty solid here. He was able to kind of chase, and he's really mobile. You know, I think he's quite a bit faster than Mazdamonion's Lock, but I'll have to take a look at that. But very durable. He can give himself that physical ward save, and he's pretty excellent at hunting down Skaven lords. You can see that Queek here isn't long for this earth. So very well played to my opponent. It was definitely a fun build. Those Globadiers were quite scary. And you know, you guys saw I slipped up for 1 second and didn't pay attention to my Bastillodon, and it got just absolutely erased by those Globadiers, which was pretty awesome. You know, definitely quite powerful. I definitely recommend when you're playing this Skaven to bring some of these Poison Wind Globadiers. I like the Plague Monks in the front line. I think it would have been nice to have like a Warp Lightning Cannon to just be pressuring KROQ-GAR, but aside from that, like I really liked his build. I thought it was pretty cool. So yeah, very well played to my opponent, Sol Invictus. Look forward to seeing you again on ladder, and hopefully you guys enjoyed that KROQ-GAR showdown. Have an excellent night, guys, and take care.